Okay, so let's talk about some math. Open up your textbooks to page 59. I'm going to be talking a little bit about estimating when dividing. Remember, estimating can be helpful to check your answer against. So you can estimate and then divide and kind of get an idea of what the answer should look like so that when you actually do the problem and see what the real answer is, if it's totally different from your estimation, you know you probably got a problem. So you've got to redo it. But if it's pretty close to your estimation, then you're probably all right. And you can double check if you want to, but and double checking is usually a good idea. But you can feel confident that you got the right answer because it's close to your estimation. So here we're going to look at number 18. And our little cartoon guy kind of does this estimation for us. So it says estimate the value of 31.2 divided by 8. So let's look into this little man's brain. Let's call him Fred. Fred estimates the answer by rounding 31.2 up to 32. Now normally if we were rounding and we were rounding to the nearest ones place like Fred does, we wouldn't round up to 32, right? Because 2 is less than 5. But what he's doing is he knows that he can divide 32 by 8 and not have a remainder. He knows 32 divided by 8 is 4. So he saw that 31.2 was close enough to 32 that if he just made it 32 and divided, because he could do that in his head, he would kind of have a rough estimate. So he gets 4 as his rough estimate, and let's see what it actually is, how close to 4 the answer really is. 31.2 divided by 8. No, that's not right. My brain's getting rusty not being in school. I'm sure y'all's aren't. Okay. The real answer is 3.9, which is incredibly close to 4, right? So we can trust that 3.9 is probably the right answer because it's very close to 4. All right. This looks like maybe it's Fred's brother doing this one. He doesn't look exactly the same as Fred. Let's call him Joe. Oh, wait, we don't want to think of Joey when we look at this guy. Let's call him Richard the Third. So Richard the Third is trying to estimate the value of 5.28, 5 and 28 hundredths, divided by 6. His thought is to change 5.28, round it, to 5.4. Because that's a lot like 54, right? And he knows that 6 goes into 54 evenly. So he can kind of divide that in his head. That's easy for him to do in his head, 54 divided by 6, and kind of get a rough estimate. So when he does that, when he makes that number into 5.4 and then divides by 6, he gets the answer of 9/10, right? Because 54 divided by 6 is 9, but here we're dealing with 5 ones and 6 and 4 tenths, and so that 9 is in the 10th place instead of the ones place, so it's 9/10 and not just 9. I'm about to sneeze. Oh, it went away. That's the worst. I hate when they go away. Anyway, let's see what the actual answer is, how close it is to his estimate. 5.28 divided by 6. Answer came out to be 88 hundredths, which is very close to 9 tenths. So we can trust that answer is probably correct. Okay, number 20. So here, let's talk how we can maybe estimate these problems to make them easier in our head. And then, well, let's just talk through these. So the first one, 20A, we have 81 hundredths divided by 3. Think to yourself what you could, well, rounding's not really the right word, because rounding has a very specific way of doing it. But think of what you can kind of get close to with 81 hundredths that would be easy to divide 3 by. Is that your answer? Well, what if we make it 9 tenths, right? Well, if we make it into 9 tenths, how many times does 3 go into 9? 3. So our estimation, right, would be 3 tenths, because 3 divided by 9 is 3. Now let me actually do it. How about you actually do it on a piece of paper, whiteboard, whatever, and we'll compare our answers. So 0.81 divided by 3. Let's see how close it is to 3 tenths. Okay, pause if you need to. I got 27 hundredths, which is pretty darn close to 3 tenths. If I were to round this to the nearest tenths place, right, that 7 is bigger than 5, so it would round up to 3 tenths. So it's pretty darn close. What about B? B. Here we have 7.12 divided by 8. So look at that. Think about your multiplication facts, your math facts. What is 8 easily divisible by? So what can we divide 8 by that this number's kind of close to? Think on it, think on it. Well, what if we make it 7.2, right? Because 72 divided by 8 is 9. So you got to kind of look at the numbers and see if it sparks your brain with a math fact to know, like, oh yeah, that kind of looks like 72, and I can divide 8 by 72 evenly. So it's kind of like you got to kind of look at the number and play around with it a little bit to get a good estimation. So what is 72 divided by 8? 9. Here we have a decimal point between the 7 and the 2. So that 9 would be in the tenths place. So our estimate is that the answer should be somewhere around 9 tenths. Now you do it over on your end. I'll do it here to see how close our answer is to our estimate. Okay, pause me if you need to. Pretty darn close. 0.89. If we were to round that number to the nearest tenths place, 9 is greater than 5. Well, greater than 4, really, because if it was 5, we would also round up. So we would round this to 9 tenths. So it's pretty close. Now let's look at C. Here we have 46.35 divided by 9. So think about that. What can we divide 9 by that's kind of close to that number to give us an estimate? You think. When I see that, it's not the closest number, right? Like, this isn't going to give us the closest estimate, but I know that 9 can go into 45. So I'm going to go ahead and divide. I'm going to go ahead and think in my brain, what is 45 divided by 9? Which is 5. So I'm going to guess that my answer is going to be kind of close to 5. So you do it over there, I'll do it here, and let's see what we get. Okay, pause me if you need to. Here I got 5.15. So, pretty close. I can trust that answer is probably right since my estimate was close to that. Alright. Let's see. I haven't read this, if I'm honest. So let me see what Susan's thinking here. This is 21. Find the value of 7 divided by 3 correct to 1 decimal place. So what she's saying is, basically we're dividing 7 by 3, but she only wants 1 decimal place. So this is like last time, we're going to have to add a 0. But to find the value to the correct decimal place, so the tenths place, we're actually going to have to find the hundredths place so that we know what to round the tenths place to. So here, she does the math for us, right? 3 goes into 7 twice. Here, maybe and you can read this in your book, right? Oh, silly hair. I actually had to do my hair this morning. Isn't it nice to see me not all gross? Okay, you probably don't care. 3 goes into 7 2 times. That leaves us with 6, so we subtract. We have 1 left over. So we're going to have to add a decimal and a 0 in our tenths place. We rename that 1 into 10 tenths. 3 goes into 10 tenths 3 times, which gives us 9 tenths. We subtract. We have 1 tenth left over. We add a 0 to make it 10 hundredths. How many times does 3 go into 10 hundredths? 3 times. We have 9. And then we have 1 hundredth left over. Now, we could keep adding zeros and keep dividing, but we really don't need to since it wants the answer to 1 decimal place. It just wants the answer to the tenths place. So we can use what we have here to round. So here we have 2.33, and it wants the answer to 1 decimal place. So it just wants 1 decimal. So what can we round this number to the nearest tenths place? Remember, if we're rounding to the tenths place, we look at our hundredths place. Is the hundredths greater than 5 or equal to, or is it less than? It's less than 5. So we will keep this as a 3. It doesn't round up. So the answer would be 2.3. So that's how we would find it to 1 decimal place. We don't have much time. I'm got less than a minute. So how about this? Do task 23 on your own. Ask a parent if you still don't understand what it means to find it to 1 decimal place, and work a few out with your parent and see if you keep getting the right answer. If you get the right answers on a few of them, you can move on to workbook exercise 38. If you're still struggling, do a few more and have your parent check them and look over them.